I'm Dan Crum, and today we're looking at the most foundational element of any mallet, core hardness. No matter how you wrap it, at the center of every mallet is a core, and the hardness of that core is going to determine a lot about your sound. Today, I'm going to put the same wrap on a bunch of cores and see how their hardness changes the final outcome. As I said with the rubber band experiments in episode 2, there may be optimized wraps for different hardnesses, but that's not what we're exploring today. Today is only about the difference that the core hardness makes if everything else is the same. There's not a right answer for every situation, but learning to listen better is always good. The build I'll use today is a single rubber band with a 3-layer wrap, the last layer a little tighter to lock everything down together. That's been getting me good results on my new Bluehouse machine. In fact, for an upcoming concert, I made a custom set of mallets based on this design and slightly modified, and they've been significantly outperforming my commercially bought mallets. So how do we measure hardness? Well, lucky for us, a mallet company already came up with a system. Most companies number their mallets generally from 1 to 5 within a set, or from a model designation or something like that, which is fine, but Malletech actually numbers its mallets based on their relative hardness on a 50-point scale. On this scale, a 1 or a 0 is puffy fluff, and a 50 is like the old black Balter, like rosewood shredding xylophone mallets. And I don't even own a pair of those anymore because they're so dangerous on rosewood bars. On the same scale, a 35 is the hardness of Becker Blues or the Ross Red mallets from Innovative. They're made of the same material. And basically anything above a 37 on this scale is going to be a bad idea on rosewood and potentially hazardous. Quick note on rosewood, it's wood, and so it's not always a uniform hardness because it's a natural material. 38 on the Malletech scale is approximately where it starts. Depending on the selection of the boards, you might get something slightly harder, and some companies will do that for their xylophone boards, or you may end up getting something a little softer than that, and you could accidentally dent it if you use mallets that are too hard. When you're thinking about this, you just really want to be sure that you know the relative hardness of your board and absolutely do not damage it. Using the Malletech line as a starting point, I approximate the hardness of all of my mallets just by tapping and comparing, and I mark it on the handles so that I can remember easily and quickly for later what is the relative hardness of what I'm looking at. In this way, I can know on a uniform scale what is the relative hardness of any mallet from any company as long as it's the unwrapped cores. And that's how I established the test for today's video. Now, back when I was hand wrapping, I ran into this issue that I still don't have an answer to. There's a big gap in the chart from 19 to 27, and then another gap in the chart from 29 to 36. It's probably something to do with materials versus production cost, and companies just don't use materials in that range, but I don't actually know. So if somebody does, please clue me in. I'd love to have some options in those ranges, even if they're a little bit more expensive, or at least understand what the problem is. With all this information laid out, we're ready to make some mallets. So let's crank it out. There are some subtle differences due to the weight of the mallets, which we're not talking about today. Overall, you can get a sense for how the hardness of the mallet changes the articulation on the board, and also the prominence of the high versus the low harmonics coming out of the instrument in each octave range. I use the term liveliness to describe that brighter harmonic sound in the upper register that you usually get from harder mallets. It's especially important to listen to that in the upper range where the bars are small, so they're easily dampened or they're easily overplayed if the hardness and size and wrap of your mallet isn't just right. I do find it's a little easier to get that liveliness and clarity of tone with the harder mallet options, but that's not 100% of the time. As you heard in the video, this liveliness can also turn into harshness or even distortion in the tone of the bars as you move down the instrument. So it's not universally better in a mallet. It's just one of the things to listen for. I'm planning to do an additional video on modifying or selecting mallets for this particular characteristic later, so just stay tuned for that. By contrast, the breadth of sound and warmth presence of those low harmonics is really nice in the softer mallets, particularly in the low end of the instrument. But as you can hear, they can get poofy or lose their focus or their overall concept of tone as you move up the instrument. I think people are more familiar with that idea because of the expansion of the 5-octave instrument into a lot of different settings. People are used to playing with those bigger, warmer mallets and then noticing how they don't produce the same kind of tone up high as they do in that nice big register down low. There's not a right answer for every situation, but learning to listen better is always good. So I hope this was helpful in learning to listen better for what is hidden inside of our mallets. Thanks for watching.